there we go. So yeah, my recording started. Okay, so if you go just look Google Azure regions and to see all the different Azure regions that. So you see some of these, for example, you see US Gov Virginia, US Gov Iowa. Okay, and you keep going down. Yeah, so those are the two main government regions. So for example, if you want to provision an Azure service, one of the first things it's going to ask you is which region do you want to store this service?
Yeah.
So you can select East US to East US, but you cannot select this because these are data centers that are dedicated to the US government, managed by Microsoft, managed with Azure, but dedicated to the US government. So in other words, because it's a government institution, doesn't mean they can use cloud services. Because
Yeah.
the majority of these cloud service providers are pushing, like like the Department of Defense, they use Microsoft Azure now, the US Department of Defense, and now either Azure, AWS, or any one of them, they are like radically pursuing these certifications that will show that they are secure to get more government contracts. So expect this to extend in the future. I won't be surprised if at some point, because it just, for many of them, but not for all of them, for some of them, it just saves them money. Okay, even look at this. If you look down here, you see some of the new regions that they just announced. So for example, this one, US DoD East. So this one is not even just US government. This is just dedicated to US Department of Defense.
Yeah. And I noticed below that there's the two new UK ones.
Yeah. So this one to be announced and to be announced. So it's like one of the things that I expect that to extend in the future. It's something that won't just stay private institution. It will extend to government institutions in the future. Okay. So last week we started talking. Actually, one of the things I wanted to do was I need to reset all my Azure uh, cloud service. I need to reset all my delete all VMs. Yeah, so I just need to reset my Azure account so we can play with what we need to play with. Okay. Yeah. So one thing to note, or one of the things that we discussed last week is we discussed whenever we're provisioning a lab environment, it's getting to a point where as IT professionals, we not only need to be able to um, create environments where we can do tests on, even a lab environment are getting to the stage where we need to start automating the creation of lab environments. And what we mean by that is we need to be able to go, I need to recreate an issue, I need to recreate an environment and go get the ball rolling. And we don't have to be doing manual tasks. We can just get the ball rolling, go off, being productive, doing something else, come back, and after 30 minutes or so, our whole lab environment is ready. And what that provides us is that now I messed up the lab, messed up everything, no problems. Like you can just do what I just did now, which is go off, um, delete the whatever lab environment that you've set up, delete it completely, run whatever automation tool you're running to recreate it again. So I mentioned, or we mentioned last week, if we go, we mentioned last week that there are three methods that I know of. So these are not the only three methods. So we mentioned number one method was hydration kits. And that was what we discussed last week. We have the video recording up on the community web page. Number two, we mentioned something called PowerShell DSA. Does anyone know what we mentioned as the third option? Andy, do you remember?
Um, Azure RM
Yeah, Azure RM. Good.
with DSC.
Nah, awesome. With PowerShell DSC. So just thinking about this week, I was thinking, Actually, there's way much more options that I know than this three. So I will be adding to this. So it's way much more than this. So what I'll be adding to this is we'll change number two to just PowerShell because it's not only possible to automate machine or lab creations using PowerShell DSC, something called PowerShell desired state configuration, which we'll get to in this series. It's also possible to automate the creation of machines using just bare PowerShell. And that's what we'll be talking about. So number three, you can say just Azure. Tunde, any questions so far? Or is it anything?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, the what we are discussing here is somehow new to me.
yeah.
So I'm just trying to catch up with what is on ground.
It's absolutely okay. It's absolutely okay, Tunde. Like,
Okay.
because what happens, like, even Handy will tell you, right, that some of this stuff is not something you've used before, right? Right, Handy?
It's not something I've yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've never used the hydration kits before that you
yeah,
introduced last
yeah.
week.
So
I,
yeah, carry on, Handy. Sorry.
and I know we use System Center at work,
Yeah,
but that's it's sort of already set up. I just go in and choose what I want, and
yeah,
through a portal and get a machine built. But a home lab, there's a lot of licensing involved, and it costs too much.
yeah. That's right. So Tunde, so the old crux about that is that is absolutely okay. That you've not
O-
heard about all this or used them before. That's absolutely okay. Because I
Okay.
was exactly in the same situation. So many times you hear someone mention, "Oh, have you ever thought about using this?" You're like, "Oh, what's that?" But the whole idea. So let's come back to like the whole philosophy and idea behind this group. The whole idea
Okay.
behind this group is not to show off our knowledge, to show that we are
Okay.
technical experts. That's not the whole idea behind this group. When
Okay.
we first started this group, it was about six of us, and the whole idea was we are guys who are studying for MCSE or MCSA. We find out that
Okay.
it's really expensive to go out to go get training.
You are
And
right.
then we find out that even if we do get the money to go out to go get training, majority of the training is just not quality training. The
You are
instructors
right.
don't take time to explain, to make things simple, to make things easy. So we thought, let's just gather together, share knowledge with one another in a simple way where it's not as if we're sharing knowledge to show off. We're just sharing, so we can share knowledge to show off when we get to work. you know,
Yeah,
but yeah,
Yeah.
so but right in the learning environment is not the time to show off. It's a time to, oh, I've never seen that before, Andy. Oh, Andy, I've never heard that before. Oh, Tunde, I've never seen that before. I've never heard that before. That's like what it's about, where we can like really be as simple as possible. So to
Okay. That's
reiterate, the
nice.
philosophy behind what this is in IT, one of the things, if you notice, like you said, you already you've been exposed to Server 2003, and so
Yes.
things are not done in IT continually for too long. The way things are done in IT changes from time to time.
Yeah, you're right.
The way people were provisioning servers in the year 1995 is not the way people are provisioning servers right now, right?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
I'm not sure. Andy, do you go that far back in IT?
yeah, it's all I've ever done.
Nice, awesome. So, yeah. I mean, were you around like during the um Windows 90, sorry, Windows Server 2003, Windows 2000 days? Were you around during those days to know how people used to provision servers then?
Yeah, when I first started working at
Yeah.
Windows, it was NT.
Yeah, nice. With all kinds of floppy drives and all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah,
But
things we
now,
don't use anymore.
yeah, exactly. So look at the way things have progressed. So that shows us one thing about the industry we're in is that the industry is a rapidly changing industry. And anyone that doesn't adapt, at some point, you will lose touch with whatever is going on.
Yes.
So it's not necessary that we know all about all this stuff now, but it's good that we know it exists. These are things that exist out there because in the next 5, 6, 7 years, the way we're provisioning systems is not the way we'll be provisioning systems. It will be something completely different. And in order to avoid a situation where we are like the old IT guys that we have absolutely no idea how things are done. We knew how things, we know how to use floppy drives, but no one uses floppy drives anymore.
Mm.
So think of like the way I think of like the whole IT industry is kind of like we could be, the typical story of the frog that was boiled to death. So put the frog in the water, increase the temperature gradually, and because the change wasn't drastic, the frog thought, well, it's okay, I'm comfortable. You know, it's not as if they threw the frog in an hot water. So the frog is like, yeah, this is not like a drastic change. But because the change was gradual, just going little by little, it got to the point that the frog was boiled to death without realizing it. And that's what happens like with many in like the IT industry, is that we are working in an environment where many of these technologies are not in use. But that doesn't mean that IT is not changing. It just means we're working in an environment where they're not using these technologies.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean that it's not changing. So like the frog in the water again. So our workplace is like the the pot of water so we are the frogs in the pot of water. And IT industry is changing, but because we're not using it where we work, sometimes we think it's not changing. Till it gets to the point where everybody's like, yeah, the only skill that we want is PowerShell DSC.
Oh, I share this.
And then we're like, oh, what's that? Because it's been changing all along, but because we did not know, we were comfortable. So I'm not sure if that helps Andy
Definitely,
and the others.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely does.
So Andy,
Yeah,
I'm not. What's your thought
that
about that, Andy?
sounds
Carry on.
familiar.
Carry on, Andy. What's your thought about that?
I'm saying that sounds familiar. We didn't go into virtualization, and it was VMware that we chose. We didn't go into that until quite late in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot to learn if you haven't started from the beginning.
Yeah. Exactly. That's absolutely true. And then it's already changing as we're talking now. It's already changing.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
have
I mean,
yeah. Carry on, Andy. Sorry.
VMware's changed even in the sort of 4 years we've been using it.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like, I mean, whenever you have the chance, if you just Google a job spec called DevOps, right? Just Google DevOps and just read about it. Because you know what? In the next 5, 6 years, that's what your job will be called.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
what is it all about?
So I'll put that here. So that's called DevOps.
Okay.
So just Google that and just start
Okay.
reading about it. So it's not you don't have to be an expert instantly. I'm far from being an expert in this. So I'm just sharing the little that I know. So you don't have to be an expert, but just know it exists. Because the way people are provisioning servers is changing as we're speaking. It's not the same way. So many organizations are still doing the same way. It's kind of like IPv6. IPv6 has been out for a long time, but many IT admins we still think, yeah, IPv6, it's going to be a long while before IPv6 comes. You'll be surprised that all of a sudden within the next 3 years, all of a sudden it's a requirement for you. So just start knowing whatever is coming on, start learning about them, or start just being aware that they exist, and then you can start adapting to them. So DevOps is all about Google this term. So I won't even tell you too deep about them, but Google this term, DevOps. The other thing to Google is this. 1 minute, guys. Brenda, please can the door be closed because the noise is really coming into the recording. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. It's something called infrastructure as a code. That's something because in the next coming years, that's the way you're going to be provisioning your servers and your services.
PowerShell DSC.
Yeah, so it's partial DSE, but it's way beyond that. So there's like lots of other tools out there. Partial DSE is one of them.
Yeah,
But
I've not looked at any of the tools, but I've met some of the vendors at events and watched demos of things like Puppet.
Yeah, exactly. Puppet. Yep, exactly. So yeah,
I know kind of what it is, but I've never used it.
yeah, and I understand that. So
It seems good for a test lab, though.
yeah, it is. So that's one of the things.
It seems very Linux centric.
So it's if you notice, so that's one other thing. So Tunde and Taiwo. So have you ever heard? So just Google. So Microsoft. Google this time. Microsoft. Microsoft loves Linux. Yeah, there you go. That's Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. And at some point last year, I think he just went about on a tour. And one of the main things he kept emphasizing is Microsoft, we really love Linux so much. We love Linux so much. And that's because they realized that they are losing markets to Amazon. Microsoft loves open source because of Amazon provisions well with anything beyond Microsoft. So Microsoft are like, we really need to start upping our games in terms of open source. So then they released Microsoft SQL Server for Linux. Windows 10, I'm not sure if you've heard about this. Windows 10, Ubuntu Bashell. The latest version of Windows 10 comes with the Linux Bashell installed. So just be aware that that's where things are going. So because Microsoft has to become more open source. So potentially you could use PowerShell DSC to provision Linux machine because it's using an open something called an open standard, which means anybody can implement this standard without violating Microsoft IP property or intelligent property. So anybody can implement it. So potentially you could use PowerShell DSC, not potentially actually, you can use PowerShell DSC to provision Linux machines. So yeah, but like all these things, don't be overwhelmed. You know, the first time you hear about something is not the first time that that you know it. So the first time is just for awareness, so you know it exists. Hello, Taiwo. How are you doing today? Taiwo has many experience in this area. Do you want to add anything to what we've mentioned so far?
No, in terms of automation, I don't have a lot of experience with the automation provision. Well, I can provision VM through the GUI
Yeah,
and all the automation is something I'm working on because
yeah,
I need to learn that
yeah,
for my system center.
yeah. Okay. So let's go back to this. So here we go. So the very first thing that I will go to is that just to mention what we're trying to do here, just to give a background so that people won't get too confused, is what we're trying to do is we're trying to automatically provision servers or systems without the need for manual intervention. So last week we talked about the provision and the hydration kit. So the whole philosophy is we want to be able to automatically provision servers or systems without the need for us to manually intervene or to manually do something with that. So one of the good ways that we can test it. So there's Azure Classic with PowerShell. There's Azure Classic with PowerShell DSC. So there's Hyper-V with PowerShell DSC. There's Azure RM with PowerShell DSC, and there's Azure RM with PowerShell. So the one that we're going to be focusing on today is just talk about Azure Classic with PowerShell. How do we automatically provision systems in Azure Classic with PowerShell? So let's quickly start with just some basic information. So there are basically two methods of provisioning systems in Azure. Of provisioning systems on Azure. So number one method is called Azure Classic, which is what we've been used to. So you register for an Azure account, you are able to log in and you get this old portal here. So but you see right here they have this option that says check out the new portal. And then I go check out the new portal. It's completely different. If I click on that, launch the new portal, it's completely different from the old portal. So this is the old portal. This is what it looks like. Whatever virtual machine we create from this old portal is something called generation 1 virtual machines. So Hyper-V has different generations of virtual machines. So these are called generation. Again, you don't need to know them. Don't be overwhelmed. You don't need to know them. Just be aware. So they're called generation 1 virtual machines. Whatever virtual machines you create on this portal, they're generation 2 virtual machines, which is one of the reasons why you see virtual machines here and virtual machines classic. So generation 1 virtual machines are stored, you can see them on the virtual machines classic. If you create generation 2 virtual machines via this portal, you see them here, so generation 2 VMs. So there are two ways to provision systems in Azure, something called Azure Classic, and the other one is called Azure Resource Manager, aka Azure RM. So the main benefit is Azure RM, of course, you have generation 2 VMs, which means more stability, more scalability. Scalability meaning the size of CPU memory that you can attach to the VM is much larger than you can get with Azure Classic. But then one of the good things that you get with this is you get something called more automation. So this is all designed around automation. One of the things you can find out about this is something called IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service version 1, and then Infrastructure as a Service version 2. So this is Infrastructure as a Service version 1. This is Infrastructure as a Service version 2, this one. So that's just like the background to that. Two ways of provisioning system, Azure Classic, Azure Resource Manager. Okay, so moving forward, just to give an overview of this, maybe somebody is wondering, how do I get access to like this Azure stuff? There was something that I mentioned last week, and I'll mention again today. Microsoft has this program. I'll post in the chat window. I'll post on the community page again also. Microsoft has this program called IT Pro Cloud Essentials. And what they will do is they will give you, if I expand this, they will give you free access to Microsoft Azure Office 365, completely free, including access to plural site training for free, completely free. So I encourage you, register to that, and that is what I'm currently using. If I go to my credit status there, you can see Azure Pass. I have 21 days remaining. This is completely free. I'm not paying anything for it, and I can practice anything I want to practice. So I encourage you to start with that. Sign up for an Azure account via IT Pro Cloud Essentials. Okay, so now we've got our Azure account set up. Yeah, carry on.
How much does it cost to use afterwards?
So you can have a pay-as-you-go scheme where, but here's the thing. Here's the good thing. I've only paid for Azure like just a very few times. Taiwo, have you ever paid for Azure? Or Tunde, have you ever paid for Azure?
No, I've never paid for it. I've got an MSDN account,
Yep.
so I can get pounds.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one way to get it also, Andy. So MSDN account through your workplace can give you. But even if it's that, the worst that can happen is sign up for IT Pro Cloud Essentials, get Azure credit for free for like the next 3 months or so. So you get that completely free with free plural site training. That expires. Sign up for another Microsoft account. Sign up for another IT for Cloud Essentials. This is just for practicing. So the thing that they're giving you here won't benefit you in production environment anyway. So it's mainly for practicing. So you can practice as much as you want for free.
Yes. Just create another account afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. So Tunde, is that clear? Do you have any questions at all? Please feel free to ask any questions that you have. Even though it may all be like new and stuff, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's go on a bit. So in terms of after we set up our Azure subscription, and we've signed up for IT for Cloud Essentials, we have this free credit that we can use. So there are two ways that we can begin to provision systems. We can go to the portal here and start creating virtual machines and start doing it the normal GUI way. The issue with that is, of course, that always require manual intervention. There's no way to automate anything using the GUI, using the graphical interface. You can't automate using the graphical interface. If you want to automate, you have to go to the command line, which is why old IT admins love the shell a lot. They love the command prompt a lot because then you can automate many tasks that will require multiple clicks. So if you want to automate, you have to get away from the GUI. So we can go to this one, or we can either go to the command prompt. So which command prompt do we use for Azure? It's called PowerShell, but it's like an extension to PowerShell called the Azure PowerShell. So how do I get that? What you need to do is, number one, you need to look for this thing called Microsoft Platform Installer. So look for Microsoft Platform Installer and download it. And part of the installation, it includes something called Azure PowerShell. So if I go to my machine and I go under programs and features and I scroll down, so if I go to Microsoft, you see here I've got Microsoft Azure command line tools here, and I've got Microsoft Azure PowerShell here. When I scroll down, you see I got them from installing the Microsoft Web Platform Installer. So I installed the Microsoft Web Platform Installer. So let me see if I can get to it from here. Microsoft Web Platform Installer. Here it is. So I installed the Microsoft Web Platform Installer, and then it asks me, hey, tell me exactly which component you want to install. And then I selected Azure PowerShell as part of the things that I want to install. And after installing that, then I can begin. So you can see I've got Azure PowerShell here. So actually there's a new version. I've got 0106 2016. So I could actually just go add install. And that's going to install the new version for me. So that's the way to get it. So again, let's go back to our step-by-step that we've been following. So number one thing is we go register IT for Cloud Essentials, register for Azure account. Number two thing is download and install Microsoft Web Platform Installer for Azure PowerShell. So that's the number two thing. So let's go back and see what this one is doing. So yeah, it's installed currently. So I probably have to, yeah, do I have everything closed? Let me close on my PowerShell ISC that I have opened. No. Okay, yeah. So closed all that. So just wait for this to finish installing. But while it's installing, we've downloaded Azure PowerShell. And then after we downloaded and installed Azure PowerShell, the next thing that we want to do is the same way you have to do on the GUI, where you have to log into this portal. You have to log into your Azure account on PowerShell. So log into Azure account on PowerShell. And the command to do that is login. So there are two ways. So again, remember the things that we talked about. There's difference between Azure Classic and Azure Resource Manager. Azure Classic is something called Infrastructure as a Service version 1. And this one is Infrastructure as a Service version 2. So there's the difference between these two. So if you're using Azure Classic, which is what we're using in this case, what you want is add Azure account. If you're using this one, which is not what we're discussing today, what you need to do is log in Azure RM account. So you can see the difference between the two. So if you're using this one, whatever you're provisioning, you're going to provision this one, add Azure account. So I think my installation is finished now, or almost finished. Yeah, there we go. Finish, exit, and now I should have the June 2016 version of Azure PowerShell installed. If I go back to programs and features, and the version I had installed before was April 2016. Let's refresh that. Let's scroll down, and there we go. Microsoft Azure PowerShell June 2016. And then once I have that, I can open it right here. If I go to my taskbar, you can see this option here. So this is the Microsoft Azure PowerShell console. So I actually just run the ISC, run ISC as administrator. And the way you can see what's going on here is if I go get module. So show me all the existing modules. You respond, it may just take a while. So let me try to make the view options. Does anyone know how to, I think it's the options, how to make the, oh, okay, yeah, here. Make the font bigger. Yeah, let's go for 12. Apply, yeah, that's better. Okay, so get module, you can see that, hold on, I can't see any Azure modules here. I've opened PowerShell, ISS, and Administrator. That's okay. So with PowerShell from version 3 going upward, it's easy. We don't have to be going import module. There are some situations where you have to import module and stuff like that, but not in this situation. Because in this situation, I can just start typing the account. Start typing the commandlet, which is add Azure account, and it's going to automatically load that module for me. So add Azure account, and then once I type that, it comes up with this prompt. So I log in into my Azure account. Um, and I really need to reach out to Tunde because I know he's just studying like the Microsoft. Oh, no problems. Yeah, and he's even reached out to me. Yeah, because I understand because it's just because for some of us, I'm sure Andy and Taiwan knows what I mean. Sometimes, and I feel the same way also. Sometimes it's overwhelming to take on some new technologies that you've not been involved with before. So sometimes it's overwhelming. So I need to reach out to him because I know he's just beginning. He's just studying like for his MCSC. So just don't give up. Eventually you learn about it. So look at that. Add Azure account. It prompts up, asks me to log in. I log in with my username and password. And now if I go get module again, you see what has happened. It will automatically load the module. So I don't have to go manually import module. Once I type in the commandlet, it will automatically load the right module. So it's loaded Azure RM, Azure.storage, and the classic Azure PowerShell module. So there are three modules. Azure RM for the um, Azure Resource Manager option. This one is for the classic one, and this one is just for Azure Storage. Okay, so now we have that down. So now we are logged into Azure via PowerShell, and this is where our automation can start. This is where our automation can begin with. And one thing to mention about automation is to bring in some philosophy here is this. Now, again, this philosophy that I'm about to share, it's still valid, but again, know in the back of your mind that even this philosophy is changing. So the philosophy is if you can understand how to do something, let me put this step by step on the command line, you can automate it. That's like the core philosophy of automation currently. But this is changing, especially if you're going to be using Azure RM, no Azure Classic. And I'll explain that when we get to that place. So the philosophy is if you can understand how to do something step by step on the command line, you can automate this. What do I mean? Okay, I want to set up an Azure virtual machine. And Taiwo, I want to set up an Azure virtual machine. What do I need?
Well, you need the OS.
Yep, I need the OS. So yep,
You need hard drive.
yep, hard drive.
Network.
Good, excellent. So there, yep, hard drive, and you've mentioned something, the virtual network, and I'll put that in double star. What else do we need? Andy, do you want to chime in also? You want to set up like this VM? What do you need to set it up?
Memory.
Memory, yeah.
And processor.
Processor. Anything else that we need? Anything else? Okay, so that what you've said is absolutely right. Yep. But let's take it a step further. If you want to set up a VM on Azure, what do we need? Taiwo, you want to chime in here? If we want to set up a VM on Azure, what is it that we need?
The VM on Azure. Well, you need a.
Yeah, we have a session. No, so it's all right, Taiwo. We have a session for you. Okay, yeah, so let's go on. Okay, so what do we need to set up a VM on Azure? Here are the things that we need. So if I go to the portal, to the GUI portal, and I want to set up a VM, there are some things that I have to create first. So one of the things I have to create first is something called a cloud service. So actually, I'll just delete this one that I have created. So delete the cloud service completely. So the very first, the starting point to create a VM on Azure is I need to create a cloud service. So let's make a note of it, because once you know the step of the things that you need to do, and then you know how to do them from the command line, automation is putting them together. That's all. So number one is we need to create a cloud service. That's the number one thing that we need to do. If we want to set up a VM on Azure. And cloud service, it's just a container. It doesn't really serve like any huge purpose, than it's just a container. So number two thing that we need is we need to create a storage account. You see where we put all these things together. We need to create a storage account. Storage account is where the VMs and VHDs will be stored. So that's where the VMs and the VHDs will be stored. So we need to have that ready. It's kind of like your VMware vSphere environment. You have to have your data store ready, right? Where your VHDs and your VMs will be stored. So that's your storage account. So you said you have to have your cloud service. You have to have your storage account. What else do we need to have? Number three is we need to have our virtual network ready. Because again, in a physical environment, you're setting up your data center. Before you even start building your servers, your network has to be ready, right?
Yes.
So your network has to be ready, where you're going to store them has to be ready. So your virtual network has to be ready in this case. In this case of Azure, you're going to be creating something called a VNet. Your virtual network has to be ready. And then so you create a VNet, which is like a bigger network. Then under that bigger network, you make smaller networks, which is like you create a subnet. Okay, you've got this. Then after that, number four is where you can begin to create your VMs, right? So now you've got that. Then number five, after you're creating your VMs, so we want to automate this from the beginning to the end. So I've created, for example, a Windows 2012 R2 server, but I want it to be a domain controller. I want it to be a DNS server. I want it to have these users installed. I want it to have this OUs already on it. Then you configure the VMs. Once you can know how to do these steps on the command line, just put them together and you have automation. So let's start step by step and let's look at this. So there's a script that I can't credit to myself, so it's not credited to myself. It's a script that was more of like taking information from this textbook and this internet website, and I just compiled everything together following this philosophy. So this was done today. So let's see how this works. So let me bring up Powershell ISC. So now I'm logged into my Azure account and I'm gonna go File, Open, and I've got that under my C drive, and I called it Azure Auto, and I've got a script there called it AD Lab, and we'll open this. And then I've properly commented on it. So again, I can credit myself with all of this because actually majority of these we're just taking different sections, searching online. How do I create this one? How do I create this one? You understand, right? So yeah, just go online. How do I create this one? So following this philosophy of if I can know how to do it on the command line, I can put everything together and automate it. That's the philosophy. This philosophy, put in the back of your mind that this is accurate, but again, this is something that is evolving, which we'll talk about when we get to PowerShell DSC, some other service. So that's evolving. So number one, we have to create a cloud service on Azure. So that's what we want. So let's go to the beginning of the script. So this script we posted. I'll post it and then you can download it and run it, edit it yourself, and you see how beautiful this is. So what we want to create in this case is we want to create a lab. So the lab that we want to create will have an Active Directory domain controller or a domain controller, a DC. The DC will have, of course, it will have DC, DNS, but then it's going to have users, test users that we can begin to play with once we get into the lab. It's going to have OUs that we've already pre-configured on it. We're going to have a straight web server running IIS. And this is something that will all be automated. We won't have to do anything manually. So it's going to be server 2012 R2 latest image. It's going to have IIS automatically installed. It's going to be joined to the domain, all that. We're going to have a client machine also that we're going to be using for testing. And we can extend this on and on. We can automatically create a SQL server. I wanted to add a SQL server, but I haven't had a chance. So that was my plan. My plan was create DC web server, SQL server for a database, client machine. And then at the end, there's an assignment for Handy and Taiwo and myself. So we have three technologies that Taiwo will have to modify the script to include. Andy will have to modify the script to include. And I will have to modify the script to include another one before our next week hangout. So just this is what we're doing. Does that sound exciting?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, but Taiwo, are you excited to see how this works?
Yeah, cool.
So where you can just go run the script and then you come back within 30-45 minutes and you have the DC with users ready, the web server with SQL ready, the client that you're going to be using for testing ready, and whenever you finish, you can destroy the entire cloud service easily. Boom, cloud service destroyed, run the script, recreate everything again. And then you're like, oh, I need SCCM. Just modify this script to include SCCM server that will do all the SCCM processes. Again, once you can know the process to do it manually, and then you can know the process to do it manually on a command line, you can automate it. So let's see. One of the first things that will happen, so let's go to start breaking these tasks down because that's where the beauty of this is. Number one, create a cloud service. Here's one thing in Azure is if I go here and I say I want to create a cloud service in Azure, one of the first things it's going to ask me is, David, which region do you want this cloud service to be in? Which region, right? So if I go back to not this one, go back to, oh, by the way, I should mention this. If you have Pluralsight subscription, this is a really good one. So some of the script I used, I took from this one. So especially when it was deploying plus CL1, because it used different method to deploy this. So this one, it deployed his own domain controller. He deployed it manually, but he deployed this one by doing a clone. But then he deployed this one by using PowerShell. So this one was really, really useful for me. And if you see, that's the one I'm currently on now, the one that he deployed for plus CL1 using PowerShell. So this was really useful. But yeah, just if you have Pluralsight, go through it. It's awesome. Okay, so number one is we need region. Because if I go again, if I want to create a cloud service here and I go create a cloud service, it's going to be asking me, David, what region do you want? What name do you want to call this cloud service? The URL, the name has to be unique. If I go, I want to call it David, it'll probably tell me, no, that's already in use. You have to pick something unique. So that means I must generate a name that is unique every single time I run the script. So are you seeing like how you do the automation process, right? So once you're mapping out everything manually, so number one, I need to select a region, but then now I'm thinking, oh, I need to set a name for it, and the name has to be a unique name. What else do I need? And then I can go create, that's like the quick create, custom create. I select the region, I select my subscription. Important, I select my subscription. So those are the things that I'm making note of. So I need my subscription. So then the question is, how do I do this from a command line? Which is what, let's go back to our script. So in this section of the script, you select the region to use for your deployment. Your selection will be used for all the services that you'll be deploying. And the output of the region that you select will store it in a variable called this. Because whenever you want to create anything on Azure, if I go cancel this and go to VMs and select create a VM, it's going to ask me, what region do you want this VM to be in? So I just want everything to be in the same region. So first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to get the region, store it in a variable. So what are we doing? If I run this one manually, let me just run everything first and then we'll see. So I just run this whole section. So I've selected, because you'll be having the script. So whenever you select this section, that means there's a new section beginning. So I've put them in different sections. So you can see here is a new section of the script. Yeah, there's a new section of the script. Here is a new section of the script, and down and down and down like that. So let's see the number one section. Explains what it does, explain what the output is. So I just run this section and then we'll just quickly. So if I go, I can use this one to run selection. So run that. Actually, before I do that, I'll just cancel out of this because there's something that I forgot to mention that I needed to do. So because if you have only one Azure subscription, you don't need to do this, but I have more than one Azure subscription. So get Azure subscription, and then it lists what my subscriptions are. So you can see what my subscriptions are that I have on Azure. Oh, by the way, Taiwo, I also got MSDN now. Yay.
Cool.
Yeah.
That from work also.
Yeah, finally.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So, okay, but the one I'm going to be using, so that is something that Andy can follow with our MSDN, is the one that I got from IT Pro Cloud Essentials, which is the free Azure Pass. But here's the thing, look at this option. Get Azure subscription. It shows me I have multiple subscription. So which one do I want to use? The thing is, whatever script I run here is going to use what is my default subscription. So it's going to be charging me for MSDN. God bless you if your default is pay as you go. So what I first need to do is change my default from MSDN, change it to the free one, which is Azure Pass. And the way to do that, so I can see get Azure subscription. The way to do that is to quickly run a commandlet called set or select Azure subscription. And what I'm basically doing with this commandlet is saying, what do I want to be the default subscription for this session? So this is not something that stays for every session. This is for this session of, I'm logged into this session on PowerShell. What do I want to be the default? I select Azure Pass, which is this one. And I say, select Azure subscription, enter. And then if I run get Azure subscription again, you'll notice that Azure Pass is now the default. So now I'm safe. I'm not going to be charged. I'm going to be using the free one. So let me just quickly add that to our page of what we're doing. So don't forget, select Azure subscription if you have more than one. Yeah, so don't forget to do that if you have more than one. So now I have this selected. So what I'm doing is I'm saying I want to create this cloud service, and then if I run this whole section again, and I go run selection, and it just comes up and says, hey David, here are all the regions available to you on Azure. It just gets that from get Azure location, gets that. Here are all the regions. Can you type in the number for me, please? To select whichever region that you want. I go, yeah, I'm in Europe. So does anyone know which is closer handy? Is it North Europe or West Europe? Taiwo? Which one is closer? Is it North Europe or West Europe?
I have no idea, but I know the charges are different from what I noticed.
Which one is better?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know there was a time I picked, I think, the US. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, for sure.
the
You,
price went down, maybe more a bit. I can't remember, but was something I was going to investigate, but I could not.
okay. Nice. Yeah, nice to know that one. Oh, but then one, what's like the closest one to the UK? Andy, do you know? Is it North Europe is closer than West Europe?
I don't know. I'm guessing it'd be.
Actually, you know what? Just to let you know, yeah, here's one thing. You can go Azure. Actually, let's just do this better. Azure speed test. Yeah, there you go. So that will save us. So you can use this one to test which region is closer to you. So it will test for my machine and see which region. Azure storage latency test. So use this website whenever you want to find out from where if you're working for a company somewhere. So it does some tests and what's it telling me here? Ah, look at that. It's telling me that this is even faster for me now. Oh no, sorry. It's got some Azure Europe, not Europe. So look at this. This is even as lower latency to me. Virginia in the US. What about this one? So okay, so according to this one, it says I've got the lowest latency to North Europe. Yeah. Okay, so let me select North Europe then. Okay, so here we go. So I want to select my region. So I'll go with North Europe, which is 8. 8, enter. Your Azure region is North Europe, and I've put a note here to say it stored the variable in this location. So if I just run this variable, you can see it stored whatever you've selected in that variable, and it's going to be used all through the script. So the next thing, in this section of the script, random names are generated for the cloud service account and the storage account. The output are stored in two variables, global service and global service for the cloud service and global, no, that is not right. That's not service name. It's not service name. It's global store name for the storage account. So again, if you again back to our philosophy, if you can do it manually. So if I want to go to, oh, what's that? No problems. Um, so if we go down here and I go to storage account, which again, remember, what's a storage account for, Andy? What's the job of the storage account? Yeah,
Storing the VMs and
ex
the VHs.
excellent. So actually, let me delete all these existing ones. Just no need to, because I don't need them. Can delete this one. Confirm storage account name. Copy. Delete that. So okay, so if I go here and I want to create a new storage account. Um, I go new storage quick create. Again, it's going to ask me for the name. And the name, if I go David again, it's going to tell me, no, the name has to be unique. So what this means is that I know, again, back to our steps, I need to create a cloud service account, create a storage account. I know I'm going to need a unique name for the cloud service account. I know I'm going to need a unique name for the storage account. So I have to generate those. So that's what this part of the script is doing is let's generate some unique names. So I've just added the name. So you can modify this if you want to modify it. So and I'll ask you to please modify it because once you start modifying it and it starts breaking and you have to fix it, that's how you learn about it more and more. So I've just added a name called lightbulb here, which is what I use for my internal domain, but you can change it to whatever you want. So add the name, generate a random number, this with this one, just generate, and if I run that again, it's gonna keep generating random numbers for me. Yeah. Generate a random number, but that's not the only random number. That's so I can have everything for this particular script I can recognize. Because if I just put just light bulb, I won't be able to recognize. But if I put loud light bulb 5 in front of everything I create with this script, I can recognize, oh, this VM was created from this script and stuff like that. So because there's another random one at the end, which is this one. So this one is going to use the date, convert it to string, select the substring of just 12 characters, and if I run that and I go that, it's going to generate random numbers. Okay, so that's what this part of the script will do. It will generate a random name for the cloud service and for the storage account, and it's going to store them in two variables. So if I run this section of the script again, and I go run, there you go, it's generated one. So let's run this variable and let's see. Service name, that will be my cloud service name. Lightbulb 15 cloud service 44735. Nice. What about the storage account name that I'll be using? Lightbulb store 44735. Service 44735. Good. So now I have random names for this cloud service and storage account. So in this section of the script, a new storage account will be created. Now we are getting to the interesting stuff. So now I have to create a new storage account be created in the selected default location and assigned as the default storage account of the current default subscription, blah, 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 blah. What does this mean? What this mean is now, so actually, have I missed here? Okay, no, that's okay. Yeah, so I'm going to create a new storage account, and the new storage account I'm going to create, I'm going to create a new storage account, and I'm going to assign. So remember that we talked about subscription in the beginning. Get Azure subscription. Let's quickly go through this one. Azure subscription. If I scroll down here, you can see my default is Azure Pass. If you see current storage account name is empty. So what that means is for this session, I have to select a default storage account so that whatever I do within this session will be stored in this default storage account for the default subscription. Is that clear or is that confusing? Taiwo, Abdul, Andy, is that clear? Is that confusing?
That's clear. That's clear.
Yeah. What about Taiwo, is that clear?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a default subscription already, but the default subscription needs a default storage account. So I'll create a storage account and I'll now assign that storage account I create as the default for my default subscription. So let's run this part of the script. And if I go run selection, yep, there you go. It's created my storage account in North Europe, which is what I selected. And then it's going to assign it as the default for my default subscription, which may take a while. But let's go confirm that. So if I go take this one off, so let's go storage account. Let's refresh this. Let's see if we have a new storage account. And all these, again, you remember, you don't need to run it in different stages. You can just go, as long as you have all your variables and everything in place. Look at that. Storage account already created automatically. So as long as you have all this in place, the goal is you have all this in place, Taiwo or Abdul or Handy. Whenever you want to do anything, just reset your Azure account, clear out everything, run the script, it will put your entire lab back for you. So you don't have to be running it in sections. The reason why we're running it in sections is to explain. Okay.
Yeah.
So the next one that is said in this section, the virtual networks and the subnets that the VMs will connect to are created. There are no variable outputs. The configuration is done. So this one is very important to note. So let's go back out here and let's go okay. And I'll show you what that section means. So one thing that I'm concerned about is I've not seen anything that where I talked about creating. So go back here. That's interesting. So because I've not seen anything where I actually create a cloud service. Let's see. So am I missing something? Am I missing something? 1 minute, guys. Just let me see to hope that I'm not missing anything. Yeah, okay. So here's one thing is that I'm not sure. Okay, yeah. if I want to, for example, if I want to go create a new VM, and that's why if I want to go create a new VM, it's going to ask me. So here you can see it's not asking me here what cloud service do I want to put it. So that is because if I just go to create a VM, it will automatically create a cloud service with the name of the VM that I'm creating. Or I could have created a cloud service before, and then whenever I go to create a VM, I can say, oh, I want this particular cloud service. And that's very important, because that means whatever service you create in Azure, if you don't specify a cloud service, it will automatically generate a cloud service and create one. So I think you have a limit to the amount of cloud service that you can create. I'm not too sure. Cloud service limits Azure. There's a limit to the amount of cloud service that you can create. So just be aware of that, because what that would just mean is that you have a bunch of cloud services that are just automatically generated whenever you create a service. Cloud services. Yeah, look at that. So cloud services, you have a maximum of 25. So beware of that. So that's why it's good to create a cloud service at the beginning and then assign your VMs or whatever to that cloud service as you go. So at some point here, whatever yeah, and then I can either create a new cloud service from here. So it's going to automatically, it's using the name of the VM to create a cloud service. So you can see here. Or if I have an existing service, which I've already created before, I can select it from here. So I'm not sure, is that clear at all?
Yeah. So does that script doesn't create one, it lets it auto-generate?
No, it's going to create one with the name that we've used.
Oh, okay.
And I think we'll get to that section down here. So we'll get to that section down here. So let's go. Okay, so now we want to create a virtual network. So we got to this place where so we've created, first thing we've done is we've selected our region location that we're going to be deploying all the services. Then the next thing that we've done is we've generated random name for the storage account and the cloud service. Number 3 thing is we've created a storage account in the region that we specified earlier, and with the name that we specified earlier, assigned it to our subscription, and now we have to create a network. So the network one is very interesting, because here we're going to be using a template. And the way it's going to work, the way I made it to work is for anyone that has an Azure, that you have access to the Azure portal. If I create a network, for example, I think, okay, I already have one here, which I'll be deleting. If I create a virtual network from the GUI here, you can see this option here to export. I can go export and go enter to export there. And if I open there, I get this XML file. This is exactly what I'm using, because now that I have this XML file, I can delete this template. Sorry, I can delete this network, this virtual network, delete it completely. And then I can just use this template to just recreate it very easily. So which is what I'll be doing in this case. So we have a storage account now. Now we want to get a network account. So I've just downloaded this network config and I've saved it in within, if I bring up my Azure, see Azure Auto network config templates. I have it here. So I'll delete this one, because that will be automatically generated. I have this text file here, which is basically the export of the virtual network that I created before. So once you have that, or you can just use the one that I have here and just modify it to whatever you want to modify it to. Again, I advise to modify, because once you start modifying and breaking stuff, then you start learning, oh, this is how this works. So I've just modified it and to this one. So you can modify whatever as you want. So let's go back to this one. So pick a correct network. So it's going to look for my network config, which I've stored here. It's going to convert the text to the XML. So within this one, so let me show that to you because I think that may be of use. So back to this one. So there's an option here that says location 1. So the reason why I put location 1, if I go to the one that I downloaded now, let's go to the downloads folder, to the one that I downloaded now. You see that location is West Europe. But in this case, what if you're using the variable that we specified earlier and it's not West Europe? So what this one has done is you have location 1 as like a placeholder here. So location 1 will now be replaced. So it's going to search this text file and look for location 1. And it's going to replace it with whatever you set for your location, which is in this location variable, which in this case is not West Europe, is actually North Europe. And in case, because you can have multiple virtual networks in different regions, in case you want and you have like a more complex network, you can start adding stuff like this where you have location 2, location 3, location 4, and then just replacing them with whatever variable is selected. So that's what this one is doing. So if I run this one now, which is why I didn't use the XML file, instead it's a text file that will be converted to the XML file because it's going to replace location 1 with whatever variable that we generated earlier. So if I run that, you see what happens here. So if I will go to network config template here, and then run this part of the script, which is network config template, run, and then I have to really move quickly. So network config template, run there, and there you go. I've got this XML file now. And if I edit it, you can see it's got North Europe here. So now that I've got this template here, it uses that to create the network. So let's go back to my Azure and let's see. If I refresh this, I should have a virtual network now. So again, it's just putting back the template that I exported earlier. So that's a nice one. Let's go virtual networks, and you should see the virtual network name. There you go, virtual network already there. So is that okay so far? Any questions so far? Taiwo, Abdul, and Andy, any questions so far?
No, that makes sense. I understand how that works.
Yeah, Abdul, any questions? Any questions, Abdul? No? Okay. Taiwo, any questions?
No, not at all. Straightforward.
Nice, nice. So then let's go up to this one. So now we get to the point of where we begin to create our VM. Okay. So just to mention, if I scroll way down here, down. So this is where we create the service. The cloud service. This is where we create it. But now we're at the place where we have a storage account, we have a virtual network. We're going to create a virtual cloud service in this place. But we have the variable name for the cloud service already. Now we can begin to deploy VMs. So number one VM that we want to deploy is our domain controller DNS server. And we just set some variables, which again, I advise you to modify. So this is just external port that is going to be connecting to. It's all right. You can use anything. You can even take this one out and just let it auto-generate. It doesn't matter, actually. But this part of the script I got from somewhere on the internet, this particular part of creating VMs. So going down here, we have server image, get, we have the server name, the DNS name, the network that is going to connect to, the subnet of the network that is going to connect to, which is all in our template that we created earlier, the admin password, the admin username, admin password, oh, look at this. This is even interesting because you know what this automation script will do at the end of the day is it's not only going to, actually, let me just bring that up and just because I worked with this one by one earlier and just delete this. It won't only do everything. It's going to download the RDP files for everything into this folder here. So that's like an interesting one, right, Taiwo? So all the RDP files by the end, if you just run the script, by the time you can come back, all the RDP files that you can use to connect to all your VMs will be stored here. So let's go back to this one. So what are we doing? If I run this one and then let it start and then we'll explain what it's doing. So I'll just select this part of the code and then run it. So in this section of the script, the domain controller virtual machine. Remember, at this point, it's not being made a domain controller. It's just a domain controller virtual machine is created. It is called LB Azure DC1. So at this point, we're just creating the VM. We're not installing ADDS on it. We're not promoting it to a domain controller. So let me just run this one first. So run that section of the script and let's see what happens. So as it's running now, because that will take a short while to finish, as it's running now, if we go under all items, we'll start seeing that very soon it's going to pop up here with it running some operations. You're going to see that will pop up here very soon. So just be aware of that. So let's refresh that, and then you see where it's actually beginning to do the creation. So there you go. Can you see what it's doing here? It's deploying the cloud service. Can you see?
Yeah.
Deploying. So let's quickly run through this as it's doing that. So here are variables. Variables are easy to understand. You already know what they mean. Instance size, that's very important because here I'm specifying what I want the instance size to be. And if I go back to Google again, if I go Azure instance sizes, because that's where I specify what the instance that I want will be. So Azure instance sizes, let's see. So actually, I think I've got this on my Evernote, a more clever page that makes it much easier to understand. Evernote, where you Azure instance sizes. Yeah, this one, which I'll post in the link there. Paste that one, and then let's go paste and go. So of course you can always, because that's one of the benefits of Azure, is you can
Hello,
Yeah. Hello.
David. Yeah. David.
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, so
Yeah.
sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. I kept talking on because I didn't. Sorry, my mic was muted. Sorry, I mistakenly muted my mic. Sorry about that. Oh,
Okay.
so what what I was saying was that yeah, we're checking the server image, which is what it's searching for every image that has the name server 2012 out2. Then it compares the image because not all images are in every location. So for example, if I bring up like a new Azure PowerShell console here and I go actually I've not signed into this one. So Azure subscription or get Azure account actually, because Oh, okay, yeah. So I've got the session here. So if I go, let's run, because this one is busy, so I don't want to disturb it. But let's just run this. Get Azure image, this one. So run that. Get Azure image where image family like that, and then let's see what happens. And then it's going to go through. Yep, and then look at all this stuff that is coming up with. And then if I stop that for now, so you can see it's like, oh, I'm searching for any images that I have in the image family name. It's got Windows Server 2012 How2. So it's like, here's one, but every image is not available in every location. So you can see the location where this one is available: Southeast Asia, Australia East, Australia Southeast, Canada Central East. So it's checking that. So what this one would do is that it's going to search for all the images that have server 2012 How2. It's going to check that they are available in the location that I selected earlier. Yeah. And then it's going to check when they were last published. In other words, using the most recent one. And then it uses the most recent one, it stores the value in this variable. So for example, if I just pick this one out, run this line, copy this line of the script, I really don't want to interrupt what this one is doing. And then paste it here. Let's copy that and paste that again. So copy, and if I paste that here, and if I go enter. So what it's doing in the background is going to search for all the ones that are server 2012 How2. It's going to check. Let's see. Oh, okay. 1 minute. I hope my script won't be running into a problem there.
No, some of your variables won't be set in this
Oh,
window.
that's absolutely true. Yeah, you're right. Thanks for that. Thanks very much for that, Andy. That's true. It's gonna be like, why in the world is location? That's what's happening. So let's go location. Thanks very much for that. So that's not evop. And then let's run that again. So it's going to check every images that server 2012 How2, check that they are available in the not evop location, then check their published date and set the most recent one. And that's what I'll get here. If I go server image and just clear out everything else, just the variable, and see what is actually resolved it to. So let's go back. Yeah, there we go. And that's the server image that we'll be deploying. And it got, so it's the same thing. Oh, look at that. Taiwo, look at that. Now I can be guaranteed that we have an Azure VM ready. And you know what? It's not only have Azure VM ready. We'll get to that. If I go here, go under Azure Auto, go under RDP files, it's downloaded the RDP file for me. So I could just go double click on that and I'll be able to get to my VM. Look at that. VM already. So we have the storage account ready, we have the network ready, then we set up the service account, then select the image for us, create this VM. Boom. Go back to here, and if I refresh this, oh, actually no need to refresh. Can you see? LB Azure DC1 is ready. So now I have the domain controller ready, but we have to make it a domain controller. This is where you begin to select the benefit of the automation, because what we could have done, like with VMware or with any other tool like this, is we go clone this template. Now we have this template ready. Now we have to do about 5 hours of work to get it to actually be productive. Now we have to get it to install this service and install this extension and install this other service. So do all these other installations, and then we've wasted like about 5 hours that we could be spending doing something much more productive. So what this one does, again, just VM is ready for us. So, but now we have to take it a step further. So if you go back to the script, so VM ready, that's all the script that deploys the VM, and then wait for it to finish deployment. After the finished deployment, it downloads the RDP file into this location. So the location is the location I specified in a variable here. RTP files directory. So you can change this on your machine wherever you want. Excuse me. So let's go down. So in this section of the script, ADDS is installed on Azure DC1. And then it is also promoted to a domain controller. So in this section, we'll be doing a lot. So we'll be promoting this to a domain controller. We're going to be installing ADDS on it, promoting it to a domain controller, and the domain name will be corp.lightbulbit.co.uk. Again, modify this to whatever you use in your own test environment. Then it runs this function, which again I got from somewhere on the internet. And what this function does is it downloads a certificate that will be used to be, again, you may not understand it now, but you can use this to begin with, modify it, and then you can begin to learn more even that way. For example, you may not know that, oh, whenever you're doing Azure remote connection, there's actually in many cases it's in HTTPS, which requires a certificate, and it has to download a certificate. You may not know that till you start doing this and you're like, oh, okay, that's what it's doing. So it basically just downloads the certificate that it's going to use to connect to the VM. It connects to the VM using PowerShell remote connection, and then it installs ADDS on it. After installing ADDS on it, it verifies that the computer has restarted, because after it does that, it's going to restart. So it's going to keep checking and making sure that the machine is available. It's going to sleep for a while, make sure that the machine is fully available. I personally, so this is like part of my own modifications, because when I ran the script that I got from the internet, install ADDS on Azure Domain Controller, whatever, and I ran the script, it failed. And then I was trying to troubleshoot what's the issue, and then I logged into the VM via HowDP, and then I realized that the Active Directory, called the Active Directory Web Services, which is what this uses, which is what remote connection, partial remote connection uses, was actually disabled on the machine. So that's why I added this one to actually set the startup type for this service to automatic. Maybe when the time person wrote the person that initially wrote the script block, maybe at that time it was set to automatic, but now they've decided to be setting it to disabled for security. Yeah. So I've set this to automatic, and then I start the service, and then it carries on to the rest part, which is basically create a new OU for me. So I have the OU variable defined earlier here. So create a new organization unit for me, call it account. After creating this OU for me, I want you to create a new OU for me down here. Then I've got, again, let's go back to this one. RTP files. Under VM files, there's this CSV that contains the names and passwords of test user account. So I want you to import all those test users, import them into Active Directory, so that the moment I log in, I don't want to be creating test users. Test users are ready for me to start using for testing. So it's going to import that CSV into the DC, and it's going to use it to create usernames and passwords. And then after it does, like, so all this is just importing like all those accounts in the CSV. It's going to install .NET 4.5 and .NET 3.5 on the machine. It's going to disable the local firewall, and then domain controller fully ready, test accounts fully ready, DNS fully ready. I don't have to start going next. Now think about the amount of time it's going to take me to be doing all this manually. So what I'll do is let me first log on to the RDP file that we mentioned, because we can actually see what's going on as it's doing it. So VM files, let's go to RDP files, and I'll log in as the account that I created, so you can find that in the script. So if I go here, I've created an account called local admin with the password of password123. So scroll up, and actually I can just run this variable to get a password123, and then log into it. Okay, that's my VM ready. And then as the VM is ready, so I've logged into this VM, let's begin to run this part of the script that will do all this for us. So let's go again, remember, I've separated the script blocks using this. So whenever you see this, that's the beginning of a new script block. So let's highlight all these, and then I need to really rush through this one so that we don't go over time. Okay, so run through this one, and then go run selection, and then let's wait. So here's my VM here that I've just logged into, and let's see what it will start doing. So actually, I could go task manager, open resource monitor, go to the network. Let's see network activity that's going on. That's probably not good for me to be sharing my public IP. Let's Andy or Abdul is an hacker. Unless you start attacking my firewall. But yeah, I can see whatever is going on here, and I can see whatever it's doing from resource monitor, because I can see me connecting. So actually, let's bring up the Powershell part again. So you can see starting installation. Ooh, looks good. That is awesome. So imagine we don't have to be running it in blocks. You can just go, boom, run the script, come back, whatever you need is ready. So right now, if I go back to the script, it's currently starting the installation of ADDS. Then it's going to create the organization unit. Then it's going to create the account and put them in the organization unit. Then it's going to install .NET 3.5 and 4.5. It's going to do all that, sort out all that for us. And then after that, we're done. And the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up our client machine, which I'll probably carry on explaining why this one is working. After setting up the client machine, then we're going to set up a web server, and then we'll have assignment for the three of us or for the four of us on this call to extend the script. So let's add more. Let's make a SQL server. Let's make an SCCM server. Let's make what else? Exchange server. So you pick one of those. Exchange, SCCM, SQL. SQL and SharePoint are probably the easiest one. So we'll probably go for something else. Because SQL and SharePoint already have templates. But we can go for something else. Exchange, something with ADFS. Now Taiwo likes ADFS. But we'll give the one for SCCM to Taiwo because it's the most complicated one. And is the most experienced from all of us. Right, Taiwo?
Oh, that's it.
We'll give the SSM one to you, the complicated one. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. It's installing New Forest now. I'm not clicking anything. At this point, I could basically forget all this, be doing something else. I could be watching my Prover side videos, come back within 5 hours, everything is all ready for me. In the meantime, I've been productive. I've not just been sitting down and manually clicking this one and clicking the other one, doing something better with my time. And yeah, you get all the. So let's where do you have the P connection? So as it actually, yep, here we go. Yeah, you can see, yeah, ADDS already installed. You can see it's already doing that promotion in the background. It's promoting it with domain controller as we speak. It's installing ADDS for us. It's going to set it up with the variables that I've set up, which is the name of the domain, all that. It's going to put all that there. So it's going to put light bulb and put all that. So why this one is doing, let's go for the next one. So the next one is basically modifications of the initial one that we did. So which is what we have assignment on. So client one. So client one is going to, because here's the thing, is that if you're not using MSDN, you don't have access to client images. So that's why I've set the client to be Windows Server 2012. If you have an MSDN account, you have access to MSDN, to client images, to Windows 10. So look at that. Reboot required for status. It's already done DC promoted it to a domain controller. Finish that. All done. That's really awesome, I think. Can you see? Machine restarting. Look at all that. they're having to be. Okay, let's go on. I'm getting too excited. So going back down here, so yeah, so because if you're not using and because for this one, I'm not using MSDN, so my MSDN subscription, and the main reason is so that anyone that's not using MSDN subscription can use the Azure Pass, which is the free one, to also test and practice and create labs and stuff. So you can use Windows Server 2012 as a client in your test environment if you want. But if you want to access to Windows client images, then you need an MSDN subscription. Just be aware of that. So it's basically doing the same thing that we did earlier, which is basically create a new VM with the image that we specify. I've changed the variables here. Create the VM because it's a client. There's no need to install any role. Download the RDP file here. And the next thing, I'm going to create a machine for the web server. For the machine called the web server, it's basically doing the same thing here, which is specify the image to use. I've modified the variable. Create a new VM here. Web SRV name. So that was why the former RDP file had a problem, because the variable I have got here is web SRV, not SVR. Okay, yeah, so it's basically going to, again, specify the image, the instance size, which is medium. It's going to use all that to generate this new VM. It's going to download the RDP file. But again, because this is a web server, we have to go beyond, we've just created the image, because there's still a lot of work to be done after that. Now, we have to download, again, the certificate for RDP, for remote PowerShell connection. After doing that, we're going to install HIS on it and get it ready. And we can do the same thing over and over. We can do the one for SQL. We can go on and do the one for SCCM. So you have your SCCM test environment, everything all automated in a script. You can just click on it, everything all done. So why it's still running the installation for this and still getting ready to progress. Let me see if I can connect back to the VM now. Yeah, so I can connect back to it. So that's looking good. And just to make sure that the same situation didn't occur. So if I go password 123 was the password. Let's log into that again. And let's see, make sure that that service. Abdul said PowerShell, it's Power is real. I agree, Abdul. And you know what? There's an interesting thing. You know what? This philosophy that we're talking about, right? About once you know how to do it manually and you can list the steps manually, and then you can do those steps on the command line, you can automate anything. But then later down this series, we'll start getting into PowerShell DSC. Because all this stuff, because there's like two ways of scripting, like which PowerShell DSC is a complete different philosophy. This philosophy is called the declarative model. I think if you Google PowerShell DSC, it's not the So the model that we've used for scripting is called the declarative model. Sorry, not declarative. It's called something else. I've forgotten the name that it's called. So PowerShell DSC is the declarative. Yeah. So basically, it's not just so this is a declarative platform, which is a new way that it's going, where scripting is not where it's going, where scripting is, because PowerShell DSC has been around for a while. So there's a way of where you have to decline line by line what you want the script to do. So the issue with this is Microsoft changes the way something works in the new version of Windows Server. You have to go back to your script and now start modifying the line by line. So that's one way to do it. PowerShell DSC takes it further, where I basically give an instruction to the machine. I want you to be a web server. And I don't have to declare to the machine, oh, I want you to install HIS, and after you install HIS, I want you to install this one, and after you install this one, I want you to install this component. I don't have to do that. I just have to declare to the machine, I want you to be a web server, and the machine will figure out by itself how to be a web server. That is really cool. Because what we're doing right now is we're declaring line by line what we want. But with PowerShell DSC, we don't have to declare line by line. We basically give an instruction to the server, be a web server, and the machine will realize, oh, for me to be a Server 2012 Route 2 web server, I need to install Server 2012 Route 2, and I need to install IIS, and I need to set this firewall port to be open. That's like the two old frameworks of that. I'm thinking, I have it in my Evernote somewhere. PowerShell DSC compared to the other model. Because I was taking notes about this the other time. Look at this. Let me bring this up. Can you see my screen? Oh, sorry. Can you just see my screen?
Yeah.
So let's go for 16. Oh, actually, let's highlight it first and then make this bigger. So I was taking notes on this like about 2 weeks ago. And look at this. DS is an attempt by Microsoft to provide declarative configuration management. With declarative configuration, we give a computer a description of what we want it to look like. We don't worry how it gets that way. So traditionally, Windows administrators have written scripts in this is the mode, imperative mode, meaning each script has to be finely crafted and tuned, which is what we've just done now, and often changed when versions of Windows changed to perform each task. It was time consuming as heck. So basically what they're saying is we're still old model. We're still using the old model. With DSC, we're shifting over to declarative management, meaning we write scripts that tell the computer what to be, and the computer takes care of it. They're not scripts in the traditional sense because they contain little programming. They use a specialized set of instructions that both you and the computer can understand. So that's like a whole different philosophy compared to this philosophy that we're using, which is we're using the imperative model of listing line by line what we want. Whereas the other model is we tell you what we want you to be, and potentially, not potentially, with that, we can use the same thing for Linux machines or for any other machine, where we tell you what we want you to be. We don't have to tell the Linux machine how to be a web server. It will know I need to go get Apache and install Apache, or I need to go get this web server application and install this web server application. I just want you to be this. I'm not going to be telling you how to do that. And we'll see that in other series of this. This one is taking a bit longer, but once it gets there, what we just do is we just run the remaining ones for the web server and the client, and all this will be ready. And if we go back to our VM, actually, let's go back to our VM. We can see, because we can see what's going on. If I go Tools, Active Directory users and computers, and see what it's doing. So you can see domain is already set up. Look at that. I've got test users already set up. I've got the OU already set up, the account OU. Environment is ready for the lab. That's nice, right?
Yeah.
So before we start taking questions for today, here are the assignments that we're going to be discussing next week. So we got Taiwo, we got Abdul, we got Andy, we got David. So this script will be posted, and then it's up to us to extend with different servers or different services that we want. So we already got a domain controller and DNS server. We got DC/DNS. We got web. We got client. We want to extend this. We want to have Exchange 2016. So because this one is not, so this one you have to research beyond what is already in the script. Even though you can use part of what is in the script at least to build the VM, but you have to research beyond that, because this one, for example, Exchange 2016 files have to be downloaded, right, and then installed. Same thing with SCCM. But once you can do this, then you can apply it to any third-party application. So you want to provision a third-party application server on Azure, you know exactly what to do. You can do SCCM current branch. Which other one? ADFS is like really simple. It's like too simple because it's just installing a role and a service. What else? Any other advice? Andy, Taiwo, any suggestions? Abdul, any suggestions of any extension you like to see with the script. People are quiet because you know that whatever you suggest will be given to you, right?
Adding another disk and creating a separate partition, creating a file server and DFS.
That is absolutely excellent. So let me put that down. So adding another disk with separate partition. So let's call this file server. That's really, really excellent, Andy. Separate partition. Anything else that would like to extend it with? Go 1, 2. ADFS is too simple. Want something else? Andy, any other good thought? Or Taiwo or Abdul?
Link.
Sorry, which one is that?
Well, we use Link, but it would be.
Oh, okay.
I think Skype for Business is the new one, but that's hosted, isn't it?
Yeah, I sincerely, I don't know anything about Skype for Business. Sincerely.
No, I think Link is something you install on the server, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so let's go Link then. Link server. So we can use this for testing. Okay, so okay, because Andy, which one will you like? Because you gave us like all these ideas. Which one will you like to work on? So let's just clear off the fear. So you don't need to get this right. Yeah, you don't need to get this absolutely right, but at least it will get you something to think on, something to research on the internet.
I've got the file server because that's the sort of thing I know.
Okay, so let's add file server for Handy.
I know what I'm aiming for.
Yep, file server for Handy. Abdul and Taiwo, what do you want? So it gives you something to research on, something to think about.
I'll take ADFS.
No, we don't want ADFS. It's gone. There's no ADFS. There's no ADFS.
I'll try the SCCM because
That's good. Yeah. Thanks very much, Taiwo.
I'm trying to automate SCCM.
Awesome.
See if I can get it to work.
Awesome. So I'm also learning about Exchange 2016 at the moment. So I'll take. Oh, sorry, I put it the other way around. So let's go SCCM current branch for Taiwo. Exchange 2016 for David and Abdul. Abdul, do you know anything about Link? Do you know anything about Link? Maybe we can bring ADFS back for Abdul if Abdul prefers. Abdul, do you know anything about Link? Is Abdul still there? Not sure if Abdul's still there. Let's put Abdul.
Yeah, he's on the chat.
Oh, okay, Abdul. Yeah, Abdul says little. Okay, so then let us give you Link then, because again, remember you have to know about these services to be able to automate them. Once you can know how to do them, again, just research online, find out. Google, like part of like what I've done with the script, and look at that. It's already domain controller already, everything all set, and isn't that awesome? Domain controller is ready, and then I can just go. I don't need to worry about all that. Actually, I will not go one by one anymore. I'll just go client one. So in this section of the script, we create client one, and then we create the web server, and then we install HIS on it. I'll just highlight all that and run them. And then at the end of this, we'll have a food, and it's going to join them to the domain. It's going to join the web server to the domain. That's like one of the differences. It's going to join the web server to the domain. It's going to join the client to the domain also. So I go to the client here. If I scroll down, that's like a little addition here where it goes join domain, the full domain that I specified earlier. The short domain, the username to use to join the domain, the password, the whole U to put it. So at the end of everything, it's going to, if we go back here, it's going to be under this account OU. I should find my client here, my web server here, join to the domain with HIS installed and all that already for me. And then the good thing about this is, I don't have to be running them manually. Once I understand how the script run, I can always come modify them as I want. And then I can feel free to reset my Azure account. And then it's really easy. So think about that. Oh, somebody has given you like maybe some subscription on Azure that you can use for like 3 days. You don't have to spend like first 2 days creating the lab. You can just quickly run this, put whatever lab you want quickly, start practicing, start playing with real stuff. So yeah, so we have our assignment for next week that we're going to discuss next week around how we get on with this. So I'll put this in the chat window, note whatever one you're working on. If you need help, post in the community. We can discuss with one another. Again, how I did, like, majority of this was go, oh, what do I need to do? First Google, I need a domain controller on Azure. Automatically deployed domain controller on Azure. I saw different scripts, different ones. I look for the ones I understand, modify them, play around with them. Oh, this one breaks. Oh, this one works. Oh, okay, this one has a problem. I hit this problem. Google, how do I resolve this problem? Oh, here's a script that will resolve this problem for me, like the one for generating random names. Oh, here's a way to quickly generate random numbers and stuff. Oh, thanks very much for that. Oh, how can I put this into this name? So, you get the point. That's how you do it. And then before you know it, you're getting better and better. And then if I go back to my Azure page now, there's a lot of stuff that is doing. So I have my DC here. If I refresh it, I'm very sure it's already creating the client machine, and then very soon it's going to begin to create the web server and then the IS. So now that we've got all this setup explained and we've got assignments for next week, any questions regarding what we've discussed today? What are your thoughts? What are your opinions about what we've discussed today? Was it useful? And then any questions also. So here we go. It's already created the client machine. It's starting it up now and all that. So yeah, carry on. Any questions, thoughts, anything? Andy, Abdul, Taiwo, anything?
I'm going to have to go and sign up then. And,
Yeah, absolutely. Please. IT Pro.
you're going to send us a copy of the script so that we can
Yeah,
test.
so here's another one that I'm going to use. The copy of the script I'm going to be sending to you, I'm going to be posting it on my GitHub account.
Okay.
And I'm going to put that on the community page. So look for it on the community page. And I'm going to post it on my GitHub account. So has anyone ever used Git before? So that's one other challenge I have. So Taiwo, have you used Git? Andy, I'm sorry, Abdul or Andy, have you used Git?
I've pulled things from Git, but I've never actually
used it that much.
branched and things like that. No.
Yeah. So that's one of my other challenge for you. Every one of us, we should at some point sign up for Git. Start getting used to these things. Again, where IT is going is infrastructure as a code. That's where our jobs are going. Let's not be like the frog that's in the water, that because we're working in an environment that's not using them, we don't know that something is changing. And then by the time we have to leave wherever we're working, we'll realize that the skills that we had are completely outdated. So that's because the way things were done in 1995 is not the way things are done right now in IT. Things change in IT. That's one fact that we know. The way we're currently doing things is not the way we're going to be doing things 5 years to come. We know that for a fact. All we need to do is look at the history of IT and look at where our industry came from and look at where our industry is now. And this change is already happening. So we're kind of like in the frog in the water. The change is happening, but because it's not a drastic change where every corporation is like, let's get rid of all this way of provisioning servers, let's go to this new model, we may think it's not happening, but the change is already happening. So let's start warming up to the fact that changes are happening and let's start getting ready. So sign up for GitHub, sign up for an account, start learning how to commit and process scripts and the concept of script versioning, start getting used to that. That's where our industry is going. So I'll post it on my GitHub account and then send the links out, and then we can download this from there. And then you can play with it from there. So, yeah. Any questions again? Any other questions? Any thoughts? Was this useful for you? Was this useful for anyone?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't know about, so I've got a lot of things to learn here, I think.
Good. And Taiwo, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask something. Why are we not using DSC?
So carry on, Taiwo.
No, just because you said with DSC you don't need to script all those scripts.
Yeah.
You just need to tell it what you need to do.
Yeah.
That looks like that's the best way.
Better way. I agree.
I mean, better way.
Yeah.
Is there what's the advantage of using, or is there an advantage of scripting rather than using DSC?
The thing is not, for example, like you still have many environments that are not compatible. So DSC is not something that's compatible with all environments. It's mainly for newer systems that you can use because you have to have a particular module installed on the machine itself. But it's definitely better than the model that we're using. It's definitely much better than the model that we're using. But the reason why I went for this method was I thought it to be an advantage to know this one before going to DSC, because part of DSC is PowerShell. So if we know how to do automation, just pure PowerShell without adding DSC on top, then whenever we start doing DSC, it can also give us like a background of, this is the advantage compared to this one. Because we know how to use it doing this method. And then whenever we use the DSC method, we can compare. You can go, oh, okay, actually, I understand what the difference is. I understand why this one makes a difference. So that's like the main reason. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but we will get to DSC. Yeah, so we will get to using DSC. So the thing I'm thinking of is bringing up the paint again, because I mentioned only 3 last week, but then I've increased this to more than 3. It was that we may probably even just start with just using Hyper-V with PowerShell, or maybe just Azure Classic with PowerShell DSC before. So this one now even goes on steroids. Azure Harem with PowerShell DSC. So remember the one that I showed you last week, where you could go create in Azure with a single button from Git. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah, do you remember that one? Yeah. So that one, that's using Azure Harem, because with Azure Harem, you can have all these templates and different kinds. Anyone can create all these different kinds of templates and then combine that with PowerShell DSC, really powerful. And then you can just commit it to Azure from within Git. So imagine that you can have like all your infrastructure in Git all set up with version control. Oh, and there's like an issue with this one. No problems. Just commit the whole version of the infrastructure and everything will be set up automatically. So your whole infrastructure just becomes a code. So we will get to this one. So that's this is like the big master that we're getting to. That is where we're going to. But I'm thinking it's like some benefits to build up to it. So we did Azure Classic with PowerShell today, which you can also apply the same thing to just a normal PowerShell. And so maybe next week next week we just discuss what we were able to do, how we were able to extend the script. And if we have the chance, we can start building on Azure Classic with PowerShell DSC. Yeah, good one. Any questions again? Abdul says need more digging on this. Abdul, we all need digging on this. Believe me. So I can remember like maybe like from around mid last year was when I started hearing this concept of infrastructure as a code. It was really strange and I had no idea what was going on. So I was like, okay, yeah, infrastructure as a code, yeah, just sounds cool. It's something that won't take off. And then, I signed up for like a lot of Twitter accounts, started following people. Again, that's like one of the things that I challenge you to start doing. Sign up for GitHub. Whether you know how to use it or not, it doesn't matter. The first step is just sign up for it. Once you sign up for it, then you can start learning how to use it. But just sign up for it, then you can start learning how to commit code to GitHub, how versioning works. And then just look for people on Twitter. I follow like all these different DevOps guys on Twitter, where like maybe like 95% of the time, what they're talking about, I have absolutely no idea about what they're talking about. But I'm just like, that sounds interesting. That sounds really interesting. There's like some guys I followed more recently, WinOps. Yeah, for the WinOps, they had a WinOps conference in London, and then I was looking at some of their slides, and I was like, this is like interesting what these guys are talking about. That you can do this. Oh, this is like really interesting what they're talking about. That you're able to do this. So then I'm like, actually, this makes sense. Then little by little, we start making sense. So it may not make sense now. You may not understand it completely now, but at least you're aware of it. That's the beginning point. So this kind of conference, I'm talking to Taiwo. I'm like, Taiwo, let's start looking for this kind of conferences and start going to this kind of conferences. Because then you'll start understanding what's going on. And then talk about like the DevOps, the DevOpsification of Windows Server, because that's where the industry is going. It's just as sure as 5 years ago, the way we are provisioning servers is not the way we're doing it now. With the same surety, we can say the way we are provisioning servers now is not the way we're going to be doing it 5 years to come. We can be 100% sure of that. Okay, any other questions before we call it a day? And look at this. The client is ready. Look at not only if the client is ready, the web server is ready. Look at that. Let's log into the web server. All fully joined to the domain. So local admin. Where's the password again? Not this one. Look at that. Everything. While we're talking and doing something more productive, the servers will be busy building in the background. Let's look for the password 123. I may need to, yeah, look at that. Web server is ready. It's going to be installing HIS on it already. That's what it's doing. It's currently installing HIS on it. And let's go. So why it's doing that? When it comes up, we're going to see. So join the domain. Oh, and by the way, we can also confirm from looking at this guy and refreshing this guy here. Hey, here we go. Join to the domain, client and web server. We've not done anything, all this stuff manually and all that stuff. It's all done. And it's also added a little part of the code that puts BG info on that. And that's all part of the script. So if there's no other question, I think we just call it a day. No other questions, anyone? I've been listening to the HTTP arrest. Oh, nice one. Thanks very much for that. Oh, Abdul, you have a question, Abdul? Arrested DevOps. Thanks very much for that. Yeah, this is one of the things. What is GitHub? Oh, okay. So that's a question for another time, Abdul. But just go to Google. Just Google GitHub. Sign up for it. This one, GitHub. So that's a question for another time. We'll probably dedicate another special hangout on GitHub at some point. So actually, if you look at it, I'm actually just watching a video on GitHub. This one. So that I'm currently watching on GitHub and stuff like that, and committing code and stuff like that. So just be aware. It's not that we're not using it where I work like that as much as like that. We do have the capability to use it. We use something called Stash, which is based on Git, which is what GitHub is based on. So just sign up for this, Abdul, and then at some point we'll get to it and then discuss it. So yeah, thanks very much for this, Andy. So this kind of things that we should start getting into. Sign up for GitHub, start listening to podcasts around DevOps. You understand it or not, it doesn't matter. Just start learning the philosophy of what's going on, the thinking behind it. That's really nice. Thanks very much for that, Andy. So any other questions before we call it a day? We've gone over time by 7 minutes.
Yep. So I've just found you on GitHub.
Yeah, nice. So actually, I think I already put the code on there today. So I think I may just update it.
I don't know where to see it. I can just see the git ignore and git attributes files.
I'll put the link itself. So I'll put the link directly on the community page.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking. So if not that, sorry, actually, let's go Hackpad. So I'll put the link on GitHub because this is not like a good way to share code or anything like that. Sign in with Google Plus. Yeah, no problems, Abdul. No problems. Okay. Whatever. So let me just go. Where's the PowerShell? Yeah, look at that. The VM is ready. So this is a full web server already. You see, with IIS installed, ready for me to start playing with. So I'll just copy everything. Control A, Control C. Let me put this on Hackpad. So let's go. New Hackpad. Title Azure Classic with PowerShell DSC.
It's just PowerShell, isn't it? It's not DSC.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Thanks for that. Just with PowerShell. Just PowerShell. That's right. Enter. So I'll put it on GitHub and then share the link. But in the meantime, I could go. Where's that? What's your email address, Tayo? And everyone, if you post your email address, I can add you here. So actually, let me send this to you also. So if you click on the link there, I think that'll be much better. So click on the link there. So let me know when you click on the link. Can you see the note?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So what about you, Handy? Can you see the note once you click on the link? Yeah, nice one. Okay, yeah. So just get it from there first, but I also post it on Git, and then you can get it directly from there. Because then if I make any changes, because the way the Git is linked is that if I make any changes, and then I can commit it, and then it automatically gets updated on Git also. So then it got a different version number now, and I can go back to other version. So that's okay. No problem. So remember your your assignment for next week if you have the chance. And if you have any questions, post it. But it's a good little project to work on outside work. Okay, and then we'll meet again next week. Thanks very much, guys. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You too.
No problem. See ya. Thanks a lot. Speak to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.